Well, so having started, uh, I'm hoping that you all got to read. Joe had put together sort of an outline based on his thinking, Joe Hibbard, on his thinking of what this might look like, the pieces. And Polly had written back in December a kind of a really useful permanent memorial thoughts how we got here, which is a large part of what we're about right now in this working group is to figure out a presentation that we can take around and use and change slightly for different audiences and stuff. Um, so I think Nancy, did you get a chance to look through those two documents? You're
Yep.
muted.
Oh, I know. I just unmuted myself. Yes, I certainly did.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. So I thought since Joe has a kind of an outline, I would love to, if you all think this works, I would love to go through that and we can edit and change and morph it because it's a skeleton on which we can, that we could work with if that works for you three. Um,
Works for me.
okay. So, um, and again, we probably won't be able to see it tonight, but Polly has started a storyboard app that has some potential as being possibly the actual vehicle for a presentation. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think actually too, it's more of, it would help us if I can get to my computer. It would help us maybe think about what visuals we want to use,
Right.
and sort of help with the flow. It's not really a PowerPoint. We'd have to transfer it over to PowerPoint.
All right. Okay. I see. All right. That I wasn't clear on that. Great. Okay. Fine. But it will help with the flow, and we'll start helping with the flow by looking at Joe's. If you all have it in front of you, Joe's outline, and I'm wondering if there's a way to get this on the screen. Joe Palumbo, are you able to share screen here? Are we?
If you look on the bottom, do you see a share?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Try
Okay.
that. That should work.
Okay. So first I've got to find it. I'm on two computers myself here. So I'm going to attempt to share the screen, and let's see if we can do this. We'll get this down to a really smoothly operating operation very soon. I have no doubt. Okay. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay. Nope. Nope. You can tell I've never done this before.
Oh, sorry. If you send me what it is you want shared, I can try to do it quickly. Or Joe, if you know what document he's talking about, if you just email it to me, I can open it up and share screen.
Sure. Am I able to share screen or?
Yeah, try it. See if it.
I think you
it's
should.
weird because we don't have hosting privileges, so see if it works for you.
If I can, you should, Joe, I would think. I'm on a different computer from all my files at this point.
There you go.
Oh, Joe, well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful. All right. Well, let's start. Thank you, Joe. Let's start out and just agree on terms here. The introduction subcommittee, the background and general charge.
Hey, Tui,
Yeah.
Could I chime in?
Yeah, please. In fact, I would love it if you would go through it since you've written this and we can chime in on you.
I guess my feeling is that the most important or one important thing to do right away is to say, all right, what are the big categories, the 1, 2, 3, 4? And there would clearly need to be some kind of introduction to this. But immediately following that, we would have to explain what we're after in these meetings, what we seek. And why are we gathered at
Mhm.
this session?
Yeah.
And then I think the third part would be to share what we've accomplished as a means of giving people context. If they haven't followed it closely, then there'll be a lot of new information. Because number 4 is we're going to be asking them for input of some kind.
Right.
And so those are the 4 big parts that I thought needed to be communicated. And whether that's the order in which they're presented or how the individual ABCD content of each segment is what we want to say, that was my thinking, that there'd have to be some introduction, state why we're there, share, and give context to the attendees of these sessions, and then somehow solicit input from them, if that's what we're really after.
Yeah. Thank
One
you
of,
for that.
I might say that one of the challenges, I think, is going to be to compress all this material into a very cogent and clear, but at the same time, provocative presentation. I think it's a challenge because there's so much that could be said. You could, have
No, I
multiple
think
sessions. Yeah.
that's so true. And we've spoken all along that this will have different audiences. So it struck me, it's like a lesson plan. I taught some adult ed courses where you need to be prepared for all these eventualities. We certainly have information that can go in a lot of different directions, but we could have a master PowerPoint with all the stuff in it and sub PowerPoints, So I kind of think I would like to see us put, obviously we need to get something by the 20th, something to at least show the committee that this is what we're looking at and get the bigger weigh in from the committee. But I think ultimately I'd like to see a master PowerPoint that we can just pull slides out of and put, make sub PowerPoints out of for different audiences,
Right.
because this is going to go to different audiences. So
Sure.
the the pieces are the introduction, which could be an hour long. The history of of the site, uh, uh, and of the committee, of the charge. Um, it could be forever. But I think if we could take a
Can I
cut at, yeah,
Sorry, I have a thought about this because, as I was looking at this and comparing it to what happened at the public forums, and in thinking about what I would say, I want to know I would start backwards to know what our goal is, because I had said that I would like to have more public discussions, but my idea is to have more time for people to talk than we talk. So I was wondering what you thought about providing packets for people to look at before the meeting, give people something to come to so that they're not coming cold, because there is a lot to discuss, too much to discuss. And of course, you need to have some introduction, but why not give people, say, here, we provided this before your discussion. Have, for example, this mission statement right at the top, and a very brief outline of what the committee has done, and then links to, because Tali had said that she wanted to show Beyond Granite, and I've taken a deep dive looking at that website recently, and it's great. But why take up time to show that again? People can just look on that, just like I did myself, and also to direct them to the Concord 250 website to see the pictures of the design that's already been proposed. So just
so
short enough time, and then to review for maybe not everybody would do that, but to just give people the opportunity to think before the meeting.
so I love that, Nancy, but I think you're into the process already. I think whatever we show, whatever order we put stuff in, we
Sure.
still need to kind of build the whole story. And we could, and once we've got the story, then we could, we will be in meetings, I have no doubt, where people just show up. They won't have the opportunity to get I envision us at everything from tables at Ag Day to, whatever. They won't all be planned events that we are organizing. I maybe weigh in everybody, but I'm thinking that, we might end up at the high school. We might end up at the Right Tavern. We might end up at whatever event is happening and have a chance to say something. And we want to be able to go at the drop of a hat, so to speak.
Right. Hey, I got it. Yep, yep, yep.
But what you're saying is absolutely, yeah, great. And in settings like that, I think that would be a great way to optimize, our time and our use and people's time. So we
Well,
still need,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say too that I think Nancy's idea is kind of what we're trying. I think it would be really useful to have it in different formats. One may be this PowerPoint that we're going to present to people, but maybe we also need a print version or something online, or so that
handouts.
people can do their homework. I mean, I agree. I don't think everybody will do their homework, and so we shouldn't assume that people know more than they might know. But I think having it available in different ways, once we know
Yeah,
what it is,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that may take the whole committee to contemplate is where is this going to go? Who is our audience, and how will we get a chance to show it out? I'm thinking already that Facebook and Instagram, that we're going to need to use sort of, for me, non-traditional ways. But nonetheless, let's try to dig in and figure out if there are certain pieces of this we can actually start building. That if our goal right now is that in 2 weeks we're going to have something to show to the overall committee, we're going to want to have some pieces, and I do think the introduction is very important. We need to, our statement of purpose, um, a little bit about, who we are, our committee, our subcommittee, um, the overall, what the three things that we're doing are. I mean, it could be all in one slide or more. Um, why we believe the memorial. So the introduction is one piece, and the 25-year anniversary memorials in Concord, that, remember how much time we spent on that in the first public forum? That was about 5 slides, 6 slides, 7 slides. But I, I, I guess we need to make specific slides around that first piece. And does anybody want to tackle that? I mean, I'm sort of trying to get the nuts and bolts together on this.
Yeah, it may be slides, but also, a written piece.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so, I mean, if we're going to be concerned with time of delivery, I think the more precise it is, we can't get up there and ad lib.
Right.
And so having some precise language about this would be important. And, I would be happy to help take uh, a stab at this. I mean, I think that the piece that Polly wrote before has some of this stuff in it. And if you wanted to take it on together, Polly, I would be happy to do that.
I would be happy
I'm
also.
kind of busy right now, so I hate to take it on all alone.
I think working in teams is going to be really good. I would say the other thing for some of that is the first PowerPoint that we presented in April, which I can send around because it has some of the history bits, which again, I think you're right, Joe. If you just wrote it out in prose, to say these are the pieces. Um, Okay, so if the introduction, you two are going to work on that. And I am not going to be around next Thursday, as you may or may not know. So it would be good to kind of divvy up what we're going to do tonight. And then it will be 2 weeks from now that the 20th is when we want to try to present something to the committee. So what we seek from these meetings, you've written, again, you've got a good little write-up on that. Let's talk a little bit about this, because I think this is kind of the thoughtful part of it, the kind of thinking part of it. The first part with, yes, this is why we're doing what we're doing. That we feel it's valuable to step back and consider. Um, well, does anybody, I mean, actually, I guess, does anybody have anything to add to that? Because I think Joe has really said it here.
Yeah, I think that my thoughts here were that people are going to show up for this, and if they are aware of that the committee has been around and that there was a presentation in January of 24, they're going to say, I thought we had done this.
Right.
Why are we here now?
Right.
And I think there needs to be some plausible and, strong presentation of, why it is we feel we have to step back and make the process a bit more inclusive and solicit a broader range of ideas. Go ahead, Nancy, just interrupt.
So again, I'm just worried that this is just going to be really lengthy, and I think I just want to put up front, where we are right now, we're in a difficult spot. How are we going to present to people? First of all, going back to the first part that you and Polly are going to work on, I've just been going through all the minutes myself recently, because I just wanted to go back to the beginning to see where we've been, and make a timeline. Instead of writing, you could just have a bullet line of a timeline of where, when certain decisions were made by the commission. But there are two things that are really, that people are going to ask. We can talk about the mission statement and say, that is what we're trying to explain to you. That is what we hope that you understand and are excited about, because that's what we're all excited about. That is the core of this. So people can talk about that, but we have two problems. One is, are we going to tell people, what are we going to say about the design? I am confused about how much we're going to show the Sasaki design, and how we're going to answer questions about that. Like, is this the design that we're going for still? Or are we really truly open to other ideas? I know we're open to sort of alterations of that design, which I think is good. The other thing I just want to put on the table, I've just found out that the content working group has been disbanded. And so we have no content. And I think that we really need to talk about that, because how people are going to say, what is this memorial about? What are you saying on it? And so I'm a member of the committee, and I don't know where we're going with that. How are we going to answer those questions that are going to come up pretty soon, as soon as in these meetings, and I think too, just right from that setup, say, how much time are we going to spend on the introduction, and how much time are we going to allow for discussion? Because how can you make a presentation unless you put those parameters around it?
Well, I think you make a very good point. I do think I think that as we go forward in this, the narrative is just a piece of what we're doing. I'm going to ask that we all really, it's very clear that the Sasaki design, as we call it, really got under the skin of a number of people. And it is still the only design we have out there. But I think part of what we're doing is going forward. Sasaki answered absolutely beautifully our missions, our statement of purpose, which was, we want to maintain this park as a reflective, as open as possible, and we want to the mission of our subcommittee was to get the people's voices who have not been heard out there, and the steli actually are those voices, if you will, what few voices we have, and that's part of the problem that you've run into, Nancy, in your research, and everybody's running into, is these voices are not there. But nonetheless, and putting the timeline on the edge, preserving the center of the space as primarily open and having this around. So having said that, the conceptual design really addressed what we said. Now, 2 years, a year and a half later, we're obviously reconsidering because many, not many, but a dedicated group of people really don't like that design, and fair enough. And so we are now taking a look very carefully at all the pieces. We do, I think, need to show something that speaks to a design in this. I absolutely agree. And right now, the only design is that design, but we need to phrase it in a way that says, here's where we are, because it is where we are, and let people see. Polly.
I was just going to say that it's been pretty, I think we've all observed this, that when our ideas for this memorial were abstract and didn't take a particular form, there was really, everyone who knew about them thought, great, wonderful, can't wait to see what you guys come up with. And when it starts to take a form, people start to look at it critically, and it gives them something to respond to. I would propose that we absolutely need to show the conceptual design, because it's where we got through our process of looking at the space, looking at its context, looking at its limitations, looking at the goals that we set out to make it open and a place where people could gather and various other things. And say, this is where we ended up. Let's talk about it. What do we like? What do we not like? What could we rethink? Is it is it taking on too much? I mean, that's one possibility. Is it, what are the, because then people can respond. And I think if it's just abstract, we're going to be where we were a year and a half ago without, and then we'll be in the same place again because we'll have,
Right.
So, that's my,
Yeah,
I
think,
agree, because what I don't actually know. I know my own little group of friends and people who I talk to, so I don't actually know what people think. I know what some people think, and that's the most definitive I personally can be. So, I am interested to see what people have to say about the design, but I also, what we're doing now is putting together how we're presenting this, and to me, that's how we need to be really thoughtful about how, and I want to know actually how we're going to present this. And
Well, I have a suggestion, Nancy. I suggest that you and I collaborate over the next, and I'll get quiet towards the end of this coming week, but that you and I collaborate on just that. If Joe and Polly work on introduction and some of the history and the salient pieces of all of the stuff that led both the town of Concord to here and our committee to here, then we can take maybe the number 3. Can you go? I've got it here. Share what we've accomplished. Yeah, because number 4 is the what do you think? But maybe, Nancy, you and I could put some words around number 3, and come up with a bit of a narrative there, including in it a picture of the existing conceptual design and the questions around it that Polly just mentioned. I think you'd be interested in that. I'd be interested in that. Does that make sense?
Sure. I just want to say right now too, that I am actually going away on Monday for a couple of weeks, but I'm always available by email. So I will try to attend meetings too. I'm going to try to keep up, but
Where are you?
maybe inconsistently.
I see. Can I ask where you're going?
Yes, I'm going to England.
Oh, that's right. So phone calls are.
So, but I have very good internet service. Phone calls are fine. I have WhatsApp. It's fine.
you got to factor in the time change.
Right. Yeah. WhatsApp.
Okay, that's not a problem for me. Not a problem.
I'm an early riser, Nancy, so we can work it. I get up at 5.
Not a problem for me at all.
All right. But I think that might be a good way. Polly, did you have something else you wanted to?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to highlight something that Joe has in his outline, which you brought up last week, Joe, that I thought was so really important, which is, in our thinking process, and maybe this falls into the part that you and I are going to be working on together, but in sort of how we got here, we did look at different kinds of memorials and different ways that memorials can take shape. And our committee made a decision to pursue one that was centered around stories, quotes, in other words, words, narratives, educational narratives, is the term that Joe's used for them. And I feel like that is kind of a basic, that was a decision that we made. We were charged with making that decision. We made it. I think we need to, that's got to be part of the story. How do we, having made that decision, this is where we ended up. I feel like that's something we do need to discuss with the public and or whoever comes, because I don't know if no one has said that doesn't work, but I think it's important for people to think about that, because there are other ways of doing this. I mean, we can have, you look at the Embrace on Boston Common. That's a very different way of approaching something.
We did get some feedback that basically said that the narratives were too long, which was another way of saying that, maybe the narratives aren't what this should be about, because in order to tell an inspiring story, you need to, build it up a little bit. You can't have, 50 or 100 words and be inspiring
Right.
to tell the story of Louisa May Alcott, in a way that would impress somebody. So, and so in number 3, G and H, I've tried to identify that, okay, we took this fork in the road of educational narratives, but what if we abandoned the educational narrative approach, and as a thought experiment or what if scenario, how might this affect our thinking about the memorial?
Well, did
And-
you,
And it doesn't have to be a either or, because the Embrace has a narrative, small as it is, relatively small, but it combines both. And a number of memorials do, and the weight of them depends on the quality of the narrative. If you go to Lincoln Memorial, it's an impressive piece of sculpture and a nice big Greek temple, but the thing that really bowls you over is the second inaugural address.
Exactly.
Right.
That's
No,
exactly
yeah,
right.
but I'm sorry, but yes, you're right. I agree with that, but you cannot also ignore the sculpture, which people who
Right.
are not going to read that, the sculpture is also iconic and would pop into anybody's mind, even if they haven't been to DC. So I don't
so,
think that you can say that the words are more important than the image. I think in
I
that,
didn't say that. Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry, but I'm just, okay, so I'm
so
just.
Nancy, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been contemplating is we actually do have the mock-ups of the other options that we all considered, that you and Gift put together, Joe.
Sure.
That the central, that central thing with the statue in the middle, different, we had 2 or 3 different looks, I think, that you would come forth. And it was we who chose the look that is now the conceptual design. You offered all these options, which I think we're gonna you'll go through a little bit in the introduction, and then we, the committee, chose the words, and we're now looking at that. Would it can go 2 ways. Would it make sense to show some of those drawings?
Well, I think that those drawings and those options you talk about are of a type. And so to get at this question of the type, that is that whether it involves narratives or the other category we used was placemaking.
Right.
And so the current design, and as well as maybe even stronger, some of those options were about placemaking, where objects were arranged in space in such a way, whether it's abstract or figurative images, whatever, they involved creating a landscape in which these things were a part. And I think that we showed other types as well. That is the pure figurative object, like the Minuteman, who has a message and all in one. It's it doesn't, it has a little tablet and some words, but once you know the story, you don't need that little tablet and those words. That's the Minuteman, and it carries itself. We never really got into that realm. So when you talk about showing these other options that are part of the placemaking idea, it may not be getting at the root issue. They would just be, other types of objects with narratives on them in different configurations. It doesn't break the mold in a way that I think that we need to if we're going to. I had an interesting discussion with Kate. After the last meeting, I promised her I would send her some of our PowerPoints that where she wasn't part of the committee, and I showed her, these different types, and she can, and she was. I was trying to open the door, and she took advantage of that to talk about this whole idea of a piece of sculpture where it has a small narrative, but it could be independent of narrative as well. And she gave me some examples. I showed her some examples, and we, I think, agreed that that's another direction that we haven't explored yet. And it would be a different kind of exploration because you would need to do that to conduct a search for a reputable, high-quality artist who's going to work with a landscape architect to design this park. And the feature of the park is the object that they design that has appropriateness to Concord, has appropriateness to the Concord 250 mission, and so forth. And Kate had some ideas about that and shared them, and I thought they were very good.
Yeah, and Kate, of course, the thing about having Kate on the committee is that, as she said, she knows sculptures around the country, and
Right.
and this is what she does, much the way that landscape architecture is what you do, Joe. And history is what you do, Nancy, right? I mean, so her expertise, and she was talking about uh, a guy named Perrier and his
Yeah, right.
those amazing Liberty caps. Um, and I agree. It's not a direction we went down.
Right. And I think that we forget the sort of pressure of time that we put on ourselves at that time. And we forget that this process evolved as we went. We didn't know then what we know now about, but and I think the other hurdle to overcome with the artist approach is that you've got to come up with some money to hire this person, a significant amount of money right away, because we can see what happened in Lexington when they went forward with an open competition with a very small budget to accomplish it. And they came up with, 4 different designs that I don't think I could say a whole lot positive about. And so we don't want to go down that road where you open up a process that has a total project budget of $250,000 to both pay the artist and build it. It's just not going to work. And
Right.
I don't know what the going rate is for a high quality artist, but it's not going to be, $250,000 just for their fee. It's going to be a hell of a lot more. And you got to have that going for you if you're going to go down that avenue. No one's going to do it for free.
I feel like at the front of the discussion of this to any group, that something we all discussed early on is that we want for Concord something that will stand the test of time, that will speak to the past, the present, and the future, that will be open-ended somehow and stretch out in all directions, and that has that feeling the way my Lynn's Vietnam Wall has, or the Embrace, which was controversial, which was very controversial when it was put in the Boston Common. And anybody who stood within that sculpture if they're not moved, they're just in a different zone, because that's an amazing sculpture. It's one of those things that when you see it, you go, ah. And it's very hard at the conceptual stage to get that. But I think we all are looking for that. And I think everybody listening on this Zoom wants that same thing for Concord, something that we can be very proud of and that tells the story we're trying to tell. And I think we've come up with a statement of purpose that is accurate to what this town wants. So so obviously what we're doing now is saying I think we do have more time because yes, we thought when we started, Polly, I correct me if I'm wrong, we thought we might actually get something in place by
Or
2
I
months
think
from now.
a shovel in the ground was the goal, but
Right,
anyway.
right.
Nancy
you
has
have
something to
something?
say?
I have an abiding question, which is what are we asking people who attend these? We need to know what we're asking these people to give us. Are we asking for their support of a design? I'm not worried about the statement of purpose. Everybody loves that. So for me, we're not, that's, maybe a few people will push back, but I don't think many people are. So I don't think that we need to spend a lot of time on that. I hope we don't. So I want to pin down what exactly we're asking people to help us with. Are we asking them to do exactly what we did in the public forums? What do you want this parcel 1693 to look like? What's the overall feeling? What are you hoping it adds to Concord, to both visitors and to citizens? And
So continue. Nancy, are these the things you think we should ask them? Because I'd love to hear what you think of this.
Isn't the simple question that we're asking, and to do this, we have to show them what we've done.
I
Is
agree
this,
with that,
is this a
but
direction that we should keep going in, or do
Yeah.
we have to have a major
so I agree with that.
course
But again,
correction?
my overall concern is that yes, we have a design, but it's not, everyone doesn't agree with it. So we have a design, and then we have, that design can take certain kinds of information, the narrative path that you've described, but it does not yet include a sculptural component, which, maybe that could be added. I don't know. So, and as I said, I've just found out that the working group has disbanded. So I need to know more about that. I can't, because it's a really difficult conversation to me to have. And that's why I bring this up, is people were going to go to this and they're going to say, when we tell them we had a working group that convened, but they only met twice and they didn't come back with a report of anything. So now are you asking us to do that work? Who are you going to ask to do that work? Because a monument, you have one people, there are many studies of how many minutes people spend when they first encounter a work of art or a sculpture or anything, a memorial. And, it's mostly not very much time. So you have one impression, one walk up to have a visitor, to capture them. And what are you going to do to draw them in to read, if it's going to be narrative? What's going to compel them to really fall in love with this work? And Concordians who live here, what's going to impel them to go back and really take this on as, part of Concord's landscape, like they do the Minuteman, or even the obelisk, which is obelisk is a very classical, time honored thing. It's not, there's nothing exceptional about it. But
What I like about this, Nancy, is you're saying the same, that we all want that thing that makes people tarry a little bit longer, stay a little bit longer, reflect a little bit more, and leave going, oh,
Right, having learned something, or
having learned.
but also to return to, like me, I'm not,
Absolutely. So what would you suggest? What are some, maybe you're saying them in what you're saying, but what are some questions what would some questions be that might get at people listening to a presentation that we're going to give, that would get at some of these things? What could we do, short of saying, here's a sculpture or here's a stele? What would you suggest?
Well, I think it's just opening. I'm hoping that people who come, they're going to be, you're not going to get hundreds and hundreds of people coming to these things. We know that from experience. The same people come all the time. And yes, we will invite groups, and we will, you can go to nursing homes, you can go to schools, you can go to this, you can go to that. So yes, we do want to get all of these alternative voices, and voices that we don't usually hear from. So when you go to them and you give them this information, we have to give them the floor. I think this is a really intelligent community of people. This is a people full of art. This is a community full of artists and historians and intellectual thinkers. They're going to come and say, this, we see that you're presenting the site. We see this design. What do you want on it? The untold voices. We want to know more. So they're going to ask us what the possible content is. And are we letting them do what our job really was, which is, I think that this committee has not done, I think that we need another.
Nancy,
please. Positive.
Please let me stop you there, because
Good.
what my goal is, and I believe that is true, is that everybody on this call and that comes to our meetings wants the same thing. But until we kind of can see we're not disagreeing on that point, we're going to be stuck in the mud a little bit. And I would love to, I would love to go forward. I'm reading this book by Nancy Keene, who forged in crisis, who was on our committee early on. And she writes about leaders and about how, Shackleton had to put his mistakes behind him, had to put things that didn't work behind him and deal with the now. I feel that as we said a couple of meetings ago, I don't think we could be where we are now without all of the iterations we've gone through. And I think that you've had a role in it, and Clifford, Melissa, Nancy, Joanne, everybody's had a role in it. Members of the committee in forging where we are now. And
you're explaining that again. I've heard that again.
So let's deal with it now.
I agree with you. And I am trying to deal with you. I am trying to deal with you.
So
that's what I want. I want people to talk. I don't want us to tell them. I want people to talk. And I think that they don't need a lot of information to have a full discussion. You get a couple people in a room and they're going to start talking. I know I've been into so many Concord things like this.
And our goal, Nancy, I think, is to lay out where we've come so that they're not starting from square one, because we've done an awful lot in the time we've spent so far. And I think that if we're not going to get the words of the working group, I don't think that people in this town, as you say, everyone's very intelligent. There are many intelligent people in this town. We know the basics of the content. Not all of it, not specifics, but we really understand.
Statement of purpose. We do not know what the content is. There are so many people that we can draw from. We know so many names of enslaved people. We know so many names of women who have served as on the anti-abolitionist movement. We have so many names of indentured servants. We have so many names of women who have contributed. We do have a lot of content. I disagree with that. I think
so tell you what, Nancy. I'm trying to find a way to get us past this, because if you feel we can't go any further until we have the content, then we might as well go home until we have content. But I
think maybe we should be delaying that, or just say to people, I think that we need to admit what's happened, that we have been stuck on the content. And so what does everyone else want? Because
there you go. Holly.
Yes, so thank you. I just wanted to say, let me see if I can get my thoughts pulled together here. I feel like the question about content is a really pithy one, particularly if we hear that the approach of using stories, quotations, words is one that people want us to move forward with. If we hear resoundingly, well, what we really want is something more like, the Minuteman, or a something sculptural, or something that really isn't so narrative heavy, we have a whole other set of questions we need to ask, like, well, what, how do we go about that? How do we get those ideas? What is depicted? Is it abstract? Is it figurative? Is it, what is it going to be? How do we gather ideas for how to bring our mission statement to light in a completely different way? I guess I feel like the first question that we really do need to ask people is, so we made this decision about approaching this as, you know, in order to tell the stories of these untold stories, and we do need to come with some examples, which we have some, and I think that it sounds like, Nancy, you have many others. What those words could be, you know, what is the story? What is the quotation? What is the reference that we'd be making to give people something to hang their hat on? Is that the approach we should be taking, or should we be thinking of this in a really different way? I mean, like, we're at a fork in the road, and I just feel like we need to have that consensus
Yeah.
sort of behind us. Joe.
That's
Yeah,
well said.
I think what you just said, Polly, gets to the nub of it, is that maybe we make our introduction and talk about why we're meeting, but very quickly get to that issue, because that's where all the contention is, and that's where, you know, Nancy pointed out, we're stalled at this point, and so it's an opportune time to reconsider. But I think you're right. We do have to show the effort we put in to that direction, and including the drafts of some of the narratives that we wrote. And here's an example, but, you know, could be refined, could be better, and then see if there's an audience for that in Concord, and like I said before, it doesn't have to be an either or, perhaps.
Right.
It can be both. But they involved, you know, sort of that basic thinking before you even get to what it looks like, you know.
So, and I do want to just keep reiterating that I don't think we could be where we are right now in this meeting without having gone through all of those iterations, without the education that Joe, you and Gift gave to us in terms of that site, answering our missions, all of the stuff. And here we are now really sort of coming back to, you know, to a beginning point and saying, okay, here's what we've done. And maybe, and with the way you put that, Paul, I think that's great. Is that enough? Is that satisfactory to people? Is that, how would you, you know, if you agree with our mission statement about getting the voices heard, is there a different way to do it? Or do you, and this is where I think our mission statement is important, or is that not the important thing? Which I would be horrified to hear, but still. Um, uh, and Paula, I think you put that very nicely, because we wanted to suss out the stories. We came up that we have a conceptual design. Is there a different way of doing that? And that gets back to Joe's point of, we didn't discuss sculpture. We didn't discuss other avenues in the build up to where we are now. And that would involve a very different sculpture. Nancy, does that, I think that your training has given you real insight into this kind of thing, and that for you, content and narrative is very important. And while
That's what the monument is about.
it absolutely, and I, to
I
Paul's
just-
point, it
You know,
is.
why don't we entertain the idea of having a few more historians on the committee? Maybe one or two people from I don't know what happened with this working group, but maybe one of those people or two of those people could guide us, because I don't even know what they discuss. I'm looking at you know, the questions that Joe has in his number 4. You know, he's saying, what do you think? These are asking the people who are coming to these talks, what do you think? What do you think about the location? Why are we asking that? Because we already like the location. We've already given all the reasons why we want that location, that it's a central part of town, that's where visitors meet. That's where, you know, that's the heartland of Concord. And then the second thing, the theme focusing on individuals or groups involved in the fight for freedom, some of who have not been previously recognized. So you're asking, do people think? So are we asking them, do they want those people to be to be recognized? And of course, people are going to say yes, but then where are they going to go with that? Are we going to be asking them who do we're going to give them so all these things, the questions that the park elements, lawn, seating, plantings, everybody wants a beautiful park, a park. What did Gary, I just read his, a pocket park. he called it, yes, we want beautiful plantings, we want lawn seating. So all these things are kind of rhetorical questions that I don't see. You asked me what I would ask people, and that I am going to think about
I
that
would
this
like
week.
to hear
What would I
people.
ask?
I guess I'd like to hear people say that because, in fact, I've heard some comments all over the place, like too
Hmm.
much seating, too much, and
I,
I don't buy that personally, but like, let's find out,
Yeah,
or
I
just
think-
leave it the way it is. It's like,
I-
I look at it, I see a vacant lot that is really underutilized and sort of
I-
sad looking,
I
but
think
I
the
agree. I think-
committee, I think the committee believes what you just said, Nancy, but we've gotten feedback that people are saying just leave 1693 alone, put it someplace else.
I think we
So
need.
I think to go back to some
then
of
you
those
need to
fundamentals
flesh that
is
out.
necessary.
You need to draw that out, because for me, what happened in the public forums before is that you ask these questions and then you've gone back and thought, and analyzed that. But for me, and I've said this over and over again, when you have a meeting and you present people with something, and then you give them a little bit of time to think, only 20 minutes left or 40 minutes even, what happens is after that, when people go home and have a discussion around their kitchen table, right? So in fact, that's another thing I wanted to say, that these discussion groups, I would like people to leave with, not that they have to provide all their ideas but that we give them an email address that they can say, okay, go back and think about this and then write to us. And a thought, when you have time to sit down and think about this thoughtfully, I hope that we do that, because I think we'll get more meaningful,
yeah,
feedback.
and we got quite a bit of post.
I don't know. I wasn't part of that then.
So
Yeah.
it's all very interesting. And I do think we got a lot of feedback. I think that, I think that we want to go forward with trying to put this together. And I think, Nancy, I honestly am not sure how or what we do with I don't know how much but the working group, I don't think was able to find a lot of information. You say there's a lot out there,
Okay.
and maybe we
So,
do
Tui,
want
I'm
to.
to be honest, I had a discussion with someone, an hour-long discussion about it. So that's not what happened.
Okay, good. Okay, so
So
stop
I'm
there.
sorry.
Stop there. But I guess maybe we should see if we can get the working group back together. I think one of the struggle we've had all along, and we still have the archaeological survey, is that there is no money that has come forward since the beginning for any of these things. We can't pay for the archaeological survey. We don't have money really to pay for the working group, which is, I think, why it was dissolved until we went further, until we finished with what we're doing now. These are challenges, the challenges that we struggle with. But I will ask, I think we should consider what the status of the working group is. I, I'm really not sure what to think. I have a feeling that we have so much information now. Maybe we should look at what this looks like. And if, Nancy, you feel you really can't, if we need this information, the words, if you feel you can't go forward without those words, then we need to find a way for you to get the words, and for the committee to. It's a real question, a conundrum.
It's important that what we're talking about, and I think it would be great if someone could just put together, just in this packet that we're putting into just because we have the categories. We have trailblazers, we have enslaved.
It's
So we have that, so we can have all the categories and have, all the ideas under it, because we
have some of the words that Sasaki put together. We really do have some that's a
see
framework.
that again, because that's somewhere in. So if you could share that with everyone, that would be really helpful, Joe Hibbard. That would be great.
Sure.
But we really did. Joe and Gift came up with some narratives that we actually had on sort of sample stelae.
Yep. Sure.
And I actually think this is a place where it would be great to invite people for further ideas. There are probably some, I think fewer words is so much better than more words. And I bet somebody has like a wonderful quote from, whoever.
Right.
out there that we don't maybe know about. And it would be
Like-
wonderful to,
Like Beth Van Duzer asking for anybody who has relatives, maybe journals from people back in the day, people who
right.
generations in Concord, which I don't think is anybody here except
Well,
for,
and there might
Sure.
well be things in the library that has, this research that's been going on. There could be some
You know-
wonderful gems in there that,
we could have a meeting like this called for historians, people who, Nancy, some of the people you know,
That
and
would be great. I think
bring
that would
them
be great.
together. That could be one of those items, like you're binding a book, Nancy, the essays of the students, things that we're all doing, and maybe Kate James having her, an art show later on. All of those things, one of them could be doing an event with historians.
I think we also haven't thought enough about these 20 people. You mentioned Beth, which is why I'm thinking of this. That was on my list of things to bring up tonight. The two things that we keep sort of glossing over, but I need to know what the committee thinks about how to memorialize those 20 people, because it might be that doesn't fit into parcel 1693. And it's possible that, everyone would think, and the town collectively would think that the memorial for them should be maybe at the North Bridge. I don't know. That's up
Well,
in the, that's something that I think
yes.
that's something that needs to be discussed in these community meetings, and also what to do about the Henry David Thoreau plaque, because
Those are
incorporate that.
absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of things to do. But Polly, what were you going to say on the other issue?
Oh, I guess I was thinking that just to kind of reiterate what I said earlier, that I do feel like we can spend a lot of time looking for the right, for the words, as you say, and the wonderful quotes. But even before we get there, we need to know that we're moving in that's the direction we're moving in. Or are we moving in a hybrid direction? Or are we like, what is I think it's going to be really hard to make forward progress until we have a clearer path or more consensus, more, wind in our sails to move us along in that direction.
And that's why I think we've come to this working group right now, is that there's so Nancy, when do you leave for London?
Monday, but that doesn't matter.
Can
because
you and I talk?
Sure,
Can you and I talk, but before you leave, are you around this?
sure.
I would love to talk to you. One of the things I'm finding that I would love to get from you is maybe a list of things, because we're getting down to minutiae and big issues. I get the thing, you have a list in your brain of things that are private
Brilliant.
to you. And I would love to have a chance to talk to you about that and not take the whole committee time, and then bring out the key things, because all of the things you're mentioning, many of them are very important, the Thoreau, but that's the details, like we still don't really know what the memorial is going to look like. So where Thoreau goes and where the names go, yes, all of those need to be done, but those are details. We're looking at the big picture now. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay, we'll talk. But we are also at 6:00, and I would like to get us at least to a place that we sort of know what we're doing. I think regardless of, we are still going to need the introduction, sort of that piece of like a little bit of the history, our mission, who we are and how we got to this stage. Would be great, Joe, if you and Polly can find time to go into that. Nancy, I would love to talk to you about your list of questions, and maybe we can talk about questions, because I do think we need to ask the questions about the basics, because we have been getting feedback that is putting a lot of it in question. So we need those as well as others. And it'd be nice to be able to work some of those out. And we will go from there, and maybe we can come up with each of our two groups with a little bit of a written narrative of what we think should be included, some of the key dates or whatever, to just help us move the next step. Because next week, it looks like I won't be there, and Nancy, you won't be there because you can't Zoom from England, or can you?
Yes, I can. Of course I can. Yes.
So you can. So
Yes,
that would be, however, at 6. Maybe we want to change the time. because 6 for you would be 11.
Would help me, but I don't want to ask you to change your schedule for me. I'm a late nighter, so that would help me if that's okay, but
What would,
is this group planning on meeting again? Or you're not going to be here next Thursday? So is this
know.
group planning on meeting without Tui next Thursday? Or are we
Yeah.
gonna
Well, we
meet?
want to have something to bring to our full committee meeting on the 20th, right? Which is a week,
Get my
is 2
calendar.
weeks from
Yeah.
today. So, I mean, we could also just divide, work as twosomes, although then we're going to come together on the 20th without having seen what each other's
Not
working.
having seen it.
That
Well,
is-
the other thing is we could try doing it the Monday before the Thursday or something like that. But Nancy's going to be out 2 weeks, Nancy?
Yeah, I'll be out, but that's okay. I can, don't worry about me. If I can make it, I can make it. I'll still try to Zoom in with you.
Okay, I just won't be probably much good from Wednesday night. I've got to do all these prep things, and then Thursday and Friday I'll be useless. But we could do Monday.
That's President's Day. Just
Oh,
so
right, that's not
everybody- Actually,
good.
I can't do that. 'cause
And we're not meant to schedule anything on holidays.
well, so there you go.
So there you go. And I think by then it's too close to the meeting. Well, why don't
What
we
would
do,
happen if we tried to meet next week without you two, just to sort of check in? see
I'd
how
be in,
you're doing?
yeah,
And
I'd be in
you and
favor.
You and Nancy will have been in touch, so you'll know. And
Yeah. And I'll try to be there.
And
And
that way, it's on the docket already. I think that would be the best. And then everybody knows who's listening in that, it's the Thursday and this is when we do it.
Did we change the time though to accommodate Nancy?
Can you do it at 4 instead of 5?
It's fine with me. What about
That
you,
would be
Jim?
great. Because I'll definitely be up.
Would 4 work for you?
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay, so
great. Thank you.
Thursday, the 13th at 4 here, our time, which I think is still 10 your time in, right, Nancy?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. It's 5 hours.
Okay.
Is that,
9
is
your-
that, is that okay for you?
Even 5 would be okay. 10 is okay. Anytime before midnight.
Okay. Well, 5 is our normal time, but if 4 would be easier, then I think everyone's agreed they can do that.
Okay, 4 is great. And then,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Then we'll do that. And Nancy, if you're around tomorrow, is that possible? I could call you? Is there a good time?
I'm out for part of the day, but you can try. What time?
I think probably late afternoon. Is that better? or-
Late afternoon, yes.
Okay. All right, good. I will call you late afternoon. And maybe we can both put down some ideas. So
Okay,
that we have a tiny skeleton to work with and we can go from there. And I would love to see a list of if you, we can even just talk it out if you want.
okay, okay.
that'd be great.
Okay,
And I think I have your number, don't I? I will check. All right. So on that, let me
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
I have it.
And
Okay,
Joe,
so-
I'll email you and we can figure out when we're gonna get our.
Right.
get
All
together.
right. So you guys, we sort of have a plan and you're going to talk next week and we'll have magic in 2 weeks. And what more can you ask for? All right, great.
hey, Tui,
Yes, Joe.
just one closing note, and I can explain this more at the next full subcommittee meeting. But at the last meeting, there was some concern about my role on the committee.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to back up and let everybody know that before I was appointed to the committee by the Concord 250 Executive Committee, I checked in with the State Ethics Commission. And I had a conversation with a lawyer at the Ethics Commission. And essentially, there's not a conflict of interest in my serving on the subcommittee right now, because Sasaki is not retained any longer by the town of Concord for this project or any other. But if the committee at some juncture were to prepare an RFP for additional services, and if Sasaki was interested in responding to that, I would have to either remove myself from the committee or that particular subject, and proceed from there. And if Sasaki were ever hired to do any additional work, I would have to either remove myself from the committee, or I would have to get written determination from the appointing authority that there's no substantial conflict with likely that would affect the integrity of a project if I were hired. So all of that, I think, the short is that there's not a conflict of interest right now. And if circumstances were to evolve where there is a potential conflict of interest, I would make a declaration of that to the appointing authority and let them make a determination whether I could continue or not. But I think that's a long way in the future. So, but for the moment, I believe I've handled the issue with the state ethics commission to their satisfaction.
Thank you, Joe. And I just like to add to that, that I think that some of the concern of you being on the committee also centered around a feeling that maybe you were wedded to the conceptual design, and that with you on the committee, it would be hard to look at other options. And I think I can assure everybody that that is not the case. All right. So I believe at that point, I'm going to wish us all well and say the committee is over. You're going to meet at 4 o'clock on Zoom next Thursday. We'll go from there. Good luck, everyone.